and welcome back to the Digital Justice Conference 2021 by recode.law. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch break, and I'm very happy to be back here this afternoon with my three distinguished guests for the third panel of this DJC, Possibilities and Challenges of Legal Tech Using the Example of Asylum Law. My three experts are from the field of social law and asylum law, and I'm very much looking forward to our discussion. Thank you all three, first of all, for taking the time to be with me here today. So I would like to first introduce my guests to you. We have Serena Ariello. She's a project officer with the European Lawyers in Lesvos. The European Lawyers in Lesvos are an NGO that provides free legal assistance to asylum seekers in the Greek islands. In 2021, Serena has been awarded the European Women of Legal Tech Award. I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you so much. Then our next guest is Kerstin Becker. She's a consultant for refugee assistance and politics with the Paritätischer Wohlfahrtsverband in Berlin. The Paritätischer is the head organization of over 10,000 welfare institutions and groups in Germany. Thank you as well for being here with me.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
And then last but definitely not least, we have Jan-Frederik Strasmann. He's the managing partner and co-founder of RightMart, a legal tech law firm that operates the platform Hartz-IV-Widerspruch that affords recipients of unemployment benefits free assistance and an assessment of their notices. Thank you also for being here.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like, first of all, to start with a keynote address by Serena on the work of the European Lawyers in Lesvos and how they actually use legal tech to coordinate all their operations. Serena, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I will now see if I can share my screen with you.
Wait.
For now, okay. Perfect. Can you see my screen?
In 1 second. Yes, now we can see it.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Hannah, again, and thank you for recode.law for inviting us to this panel. I'm really happy to be joining this discussion today on the possibilities and challenges of legal tech with the example of asylum law. As Anna mentioned, my name is Serena Ariello. I work as a project officer for European Lawyers in Lesvos, an organization that provides free legal assistance to asylum seekers in Greece. I've joined the LIL for the first time in 2018 as a volunteer, and I have then worked both in Lesvos and now in Athens as a project officer. I have actively contributed to the shift of the LIL to legal tech. And throughout this time, I have witnessed how it changed our operations consistently and significantly. So what I would like to do with you today is explain to you what a LIL does, go over the use of legal tech that we do, and then assess the impact that legal tech had on our operations. First of all, about European Lawyers in Lesvos, the organization was founded in 2016 by the German Bar Association, the DAV, and the Council of Bars and Law Societies of Europe, the CCBE. The initiative was spearheaded by Dr. Kurt Brugmann, who was the then CEO of the DAV, the German Bar Association, who had been actively and heavily involved with the support of refugees in the island of Lesvos in late 2015 and early 2016. LIL was inspired by the belief in the importance of upholding the rule of law, of defending human rights, and of ensuring meaningful access to legal assistance as part of the right to access to justice. The first project that we had, as I mentioned, and our name actually mentions, was on Lesvos in 2016, but we then expanded to Samos in 2020 and to Athens in May 2021. Our teams are made of Greek asylum lawyers, meaning that they're asylum lawyers registered with the Greek Bar Association, European volunteer asylum lawyers, legal volunteers from all over Europe, and interpreters. The situation of the places where we work is currently that there's over 6,000 asylum seekers on the Aegean Islands. There's also over 65,000 asylum seekers in the area of Athens. The majority of these people are women and children, and they come mostly from Afghanistan, from Syria, and from the Democratic Republic of Congo. What these people are involved in is, in fact, and sometimes we tend to forget, a legal procedure. And as with any legal procedure, it is fundamental that they have access to a lawyer that can explain them their rights. In Greece, the most important part of the legal procedure of asylum is the first instance asylum interview, because it is the only moment in which an asylum seeker will be able to explain their case and explain the reasons why they should be granted asylum in the country. However, at the Greek level, in Greece generally, state legal assistance is not provided by the state at the first instance level. And as a consequence, the majority of asylum seekers go to their asylum interview without having spoken to a lawyer, without knowing their rights, and without knowing the criteria that will be used to assess their claim and decide whether they will be deported. What happens as a consequence of this is also that the majority of this support is provided by organizations like ELIL. The way we do it is that we provide one-on-one legal consultations, mostly, as I mentioned, for the support for the preparation of asylum interviews, but also supporting with family reunification cases under EU law, and supporting unaccompanied children with either their family reunification cases or their age assessment cases if their age has been registered wrongly at registration. Our results make it clear that it's very important to have a lawyer throughout the procedure. 74.5% of the people that we have assisted with interview preparations have received the status, so they've been granted asylum, which is in sharp contrast with the average of the country, which is around 46%. The context in which we work, and I think this is really important to understand in order then to understand why legal tech is fundamental in our operations, is a very challenging context. I think throughout these years, we've all witnessed how there's been a hardening of the attitude of both at the European level and the domestic level towards refugees. In Greece, this has meant that the asylum procedure is increasingly strict. And it often favors speed over the rule of law. By this, I mean that they have mostly people are very often registered in a few days after their first arrival. Interviews are not date of interviews are notified were very short notice to people, and deadlines have become stricter and stricter. As a consequence of this, obviously. Asylum seekers have a harder time in reaching out to organizations or to a lawyer in order to be supported about their case. Another trend that there has been in Greek laws and policies has been to attempt to restrict access to the asylum procedure in general. Notably, the most notable example comes from June of this year, of 2021, when a joint ministerial decision determined that Turkey is a safe third country for people coming from Afghanistan, Somalia, Syria, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. This means that people coming from these countries, who amount for more than 80% of asylum seekers in the country, will now have to go through an admissibility interview, determining on whether Turkey is a safe country for them to be returned. It is only if it's deemed that Turkey is not a safe country for them to be returned that then their claim will be addressed in the substance. So the consequence is obviously that the majority of people who are currently seeking asylum in Greece risk not having their claim assessed in the merits at all. And of course, it is even more fundamental for them to be able to access legal assistance. Of course, a lot of things could be said on the effects that COVID-19 had and the pandemic generally had on the asylum system and asylum law in Greece also specifically. I would just mention maybe a couple of things. One of the main issues is that people, since the very first lockdown, where everyone was really locked inside, so since March 2020, access to the camps and movement from the camps have been heavily restricted, making it obviously more challenging for asylum seekers to seek legal assistance. At the same time, also access to the asylum offices has been restricted for COVID measures. The Greek government has set up an online platform through which part of the asylum procedures can be performed and can be accessed by asylum seekers. However, this has raised various challenges, various problems of misinformation, various problems of accessibility, and has made actually access even more complicated. The reason why I was mentioning all these challenges is obviously, as I was saying before, to kind of explain generally the context and explain that we are in a situation where we cannot afford to have internal challenges as well, especially in terms of efficiency. We need to be able to react quickly whenever there is external challenges that push us to need to act very sharply when there's a new interview date that is scheduled in 2 days, or whenever we have really strict deadlines. The way that we have a bit solved our internal issues throughout these past 2 years has been through the use of legal tech. We mainly use legal tech for the automation of our internal procedures. And our journey has started in late 2018 by actually an intuition of Cord Brugman, who introduced Elil to Brighter, which is a legal tech company. Since then, Cord has been actively also involved in supporting the transition of Elil to more legal tech, which has happened in the course of 2019 and 2020. In 2019 with Brighter, and in 2020 with a final shift also to a first partnership with IQ. There was a lot of skepticism at the beginning of our journey on how far legal tech could actually help in a field which was not really used to legal tech, and in an organization that you will see was not using any kind of technologies in this regard either. I think we can now safely say that we'll become legal tech converts, and we're always looking for new opportunities to apply the legal tech tools that we already have to new challenges. Let me just walk you through a bit on what it means that we automated our internal procedures, and in order to fully understand the effects of them. Whenever we decide that the case management of a case will be taken over by Elil, the applicant details need to be registered in our system. So they need to fall into a database that then the lawyers will use to, again, do the case management, monitor the case, and then they will need to update whenever they take certain actions, new actions on that specific case. Before legal tech, this was done mostly by hand and mostly by people. This means that whenever a lawyer met the applicant that needed to be registered for the first time and would then become our client, they would take out a paper form. They would write down the information. And then the details that were recorded in this paper form would be looked at and processed by a person of our staff who would input them into an online shared sheet, which would then be consultable by the whole team. whenever at the end of the day the lawyers needed to provide the updates about the cases that they worked on that specific day, they sent an email which contained all the details of the actions that they had taken, and then another one of our staff members copy pasted the information that were in the email into the share sheet in order to update it accordingly. I think it's quite obvious how inefficient this system was, how work intensive, and also how much risk of a human error there was in the system. Of course, it reacted as we could to the needs that we had at the time and with the resources that we had at the time, but it is quite clear that it needed to change. With legal tech, now this whole process is fully automated. The way we've done it is through, first of all, Brighter. Brighter is as I was saying, is a young company. It's a no-code service automation platform that enables everyone to build digital applications. By that, I mean that anyone, and really anyone who doesn't know anything about coding, like me, can build easily an application that can allow for automated decision-making. Whenever a new case needs to be registered, or whenever a case that already exists in our database needs to be updated, lawyers will have to go through this app, as you see on this slide. They will choose new registration or daily update, and then the app will guide them through the entire process, will let them insert directly the details that they need to insert. And all the information will be collected electronically in this way. The great thing about Brighter is that it's easy to use on both sides. It's very easy for lawyers and members of our legal teams to input the information and to follow the instructions that are given. And at the same time, it's very easy on the back end, so on the people that are building and pretending to be coders to build it and potentially to modify it if there's any needs for modification. And in an ever-changing field like ours, this flexibility is exactly what we need. IQ is the second part of the equation. It is a platform that provides a work collaborative space. For us, it is mostly the place where our database, which contains all our cases and all the information about our cases, sits. The interesting thing that kind of completed the equation is the fact that it interacts with Brighter. So whenever there's a new registration that comes in or a daily update is done by one of our lawyers, all the information that is collected flows directly into the sheet of IQ, and there's no more human in between. There's no more copy pasting. I think it's quite obvious that the use of these technologies had a huge impact in relation to how we were operating internally. The very first and evident thing is the fact that we gained on efficiency. If we add all the hours that were used by different staff members to perform the tasks that I was describing before, the more analogical tasks, these amounts probably to one full-time staff member. These time and resources can now obviously be used inside the organization to make our services better and generally to provide better lawyering for people so that we don't have to focus on these issues. Something that is maybe a bit less obvious is the fact that these people were normally the people that were supposed to transfer the information already had other jobs and other tasks. And the actions that they took were sometimes delayed so they were sometimes delayed in transferring information from the registration form, for example, to the relevant sheet that was the shared sheet. The fact of having HiQ and Brighter now allows for those information to flow directly and for some stress to go away in relation to the time when this information will be transferred. and also potentially for mistakes and miscommunications to be reduced. The shift to legal tech has already generally reduced the risk of errors, because as we were mentioning before, humans, of course, are much more prone to error than technologies. So the fact that there's no more human intermediary between the different information collection and then input definitely reduces the risk of errors. It also improved the consistency of our internal procedures. This is mostly connected to the fact that many of the people that come and work with ELIL are volunteers that maybe came for 3-4 weeks. And of course, the way that someone that comes for 2-3 weeks, 2-4 weeks to an organization, the way they use internal procedures has a lot of variation because they have the time to learn those procedures. They have to have the time to learn the procedures, and then potentially once they have to move on. Brighter guides people through the whole process, and as a consequence, this has raised the consistency and has lowered down the variation that we have inside our procedures. A last observation, which is, however, very important, concerns data protection, because the high standard of data generally protection that HiQ and Brighter provide, I think make us sleep generally better at night. The information that we collect from asylum seekers and that our clients generally trust us with is obviously very sensitive and could put lives in danger. So it is great, and now we're sure that we have the safety that we need to provide to our clients. So again, this was just an overview of how we have used legal tech tools to improve our procedures, and everything is very inward looking, meaning that the use. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm almost done, sorry. Meaning that the use that we make is very much connected to the lawyers. So it's facing lawyers directly. We have had for a long time ideas of using these technologies to talk directly and to interact directly with asylum seekers. And this, however, would come with a series of additional challenges, which I think would be really good to maybe discuss further on in the panel. So what I would do now is close my presentation. I really look forward to the rest of the discussion, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Serena, for this introduction into your work. It really is impressive what you set up there and what you are working on right now. I actually have a first question right away to your presentation, to the step regarding the steps moving forward. But let me first check. Jan and Kerstin, do you have a question for Serena?
Well, I'm also very impressed by your work and how you managed to do this in rather difficult circumstances. I have written down some questions. Well, one question, if I may.
Of course, please go ahead.
Was, as you mentioned, all the internal effects and efficiency and consistency that the legal tech has brought you. Did you see besides these effects, an effect on quality and the outcome of the process? Because by the beginning you stated, I think, once you get in touch with the asylum seekers, 75% of the asylums are granted, as opposed to 46% on average without your consultation. Was there any increase in quality or an outcome once you implemented the procedures of legal tech? Not meaning that it's already quite impressive that the internal processes work efficiently, and obviously you save resources and maybe can do more.
So Thank you very much. I think generally this is something that is obviously a bit complicated to mention, and even of course the statistics that are given are statistics that are given over a long time, obviously. I think the main point is that, of course, we're just talking about procedures, and yes, so we're just talking about procedures, and it seems that everything is more efficient, but that has a clear impact on the burden that there is on the lawyers as well, right? Because if the lawyer needs to worry that whenever there's a new registration, everything is inputted in, of course, it was not done by them at the beginning, but that whenever they check a case, the case might not be completely updated because there was something from before. And so they need to check with the legal coordinator whether there has been some updates from another lawyer that that was not inputted directly in the case list, because the person that needed to update the case list could do it, but later on at night. Everything is much more complicated to a point that then I mean, what I've seen is a relief in relation to how we're dealing with our database generally, which is just very procedural. But I think it does mean practically then an improvement in how we deal with cases, and kind of freeing up space, not only generally from the people in the staff that were actually doing the copy pasting, which is obvious, but also from the lawyer's mind of not having to double check that was done or something similar to this. I don't know if this makes sense, but
of course it does,
I think this is.
So I suppose there must be at the end of the process an improvement, not during the process in the kind of work, but seeing all these advantages. I think it must result in a better outcome even. But I understand the obstacles in measuring that.
Yeah, that's the hope, obviously. The measurement, it's also something that the full loop with IQ and with Brighter has only happened since the beginning of 2021. Okay. Meaning that, of course, it was a slow transition, but it's only since this January that everything is automated. So it's also something that I guess we will maybe be able to see in the next years.
Thank you very much, Jan. Kerstin, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. I also have one question because I'm not sure if I understood that right. So the consultation itself, do you do that still personally or also with online tools, digital tools, whatever? Maybe you could explain it a bit more for me. Thank you.
Great. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think it's very important, actually, especially if I wasn't clear on this point specifically. The consultations still happen in person. What happens is that the lawyer will sit at the registration, for example, have the applicant in front of them, and then will have on a computer, on a phone, their Brighter app, in which they will input all the information that the applicant gives them, the client gives them, so name, surname, whatever relevant information. The consultation, however, then takes place in presence. The only thing is that since I guess the beginning of the pandemic, and since everything went online generally, we've had consultations with an element of remoteness, let's say. So people, asylum seekers, always come to our premises, to our offices, but then in some cases they have the one-on-one consultation with the lawyer and with the interpreter and the note taker, as all in presence. In some other cases, one of these people or two of these people that are involved in the meeting, not the asylum seeker, will be remote. So, for example, the interpreter will be doing it remotely through a video call, while the applicant is sitting in one of our rooms with another team member. I think something that is quite important to stress as an overall observation, I guess, is that our use of legal tech, and I guess our perspective generally on legal tech, at least for the moment, is that it can obviously really support the work of lawyers and the work of our lawyers in various different ways. And I think there's many more ways that can be explored. And I was mentioning, even outside of, even not only inward for facing, but also potentially talking to asylum seekers directly. But it doesn't, we don't see a way by which it would substitute the work of the lawyer in person with the applicant. This, of course, has various reasons, and it's not only connected to taking away the fear of taking away the job of the lawyers, obviously, which I guess is always the big conversation that there is with legal tech. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't even have a stake in this specific thing. But it's more connected to the fact that asylum law is very much on the there has to be a strong attention on the individual story of the applicant. So you might want to give general information, and you might be able to give general information, but then if there's not a specific assessment of the events that led someone to leave a country, and then if advice is not given specifically on those events, I don't see how we've done our work properly.
Great, thank you so much for this. I think I will push my 2 questions back for a later time because they're both interesting for Kerstin and Jan as well, I think. So I would really like to start now with the short statements from Jan and Kerstin, if that's fine for you, if all questions are answered. And maybe Jan, you would like to start?
Sure thing. Yeah, I'd like to do that. Thank you very much. The very interesting part of what you've mentioned, Serena, and what we've talked about, that you said at the end, this has very much an inward-looking aspect, triggered many associations in our work, which I will briefly explain, because we distinguish between the internal aspect of legal tech and the external aspect of legal tech. And at first, when we started, and I put this in context in a short time, we were just focusing on the external impact of legal tech, thinking if we provide transparently everything we can technically, the problem would be solved. And then later on, we realized using it internally may have a bigger impact depending on which situation you are. But to put this in context, what are we doing? We are working as a portal or a law firm in the area of social law, in the area of Hartz IV, which is like the social welfare benefits that are provided by the state if you're unemployed. And we see at around 5 million unemployed people in Germany, more or less. And the shocking number there is that 50% of these social welfare benefits notifications issued by the job center is unlawful, meaning there are minor or bigger errors in calculation and stuff. So 50% of vulnerable people do not receive what they should receive, to point it like that, and only a few percent get access to review or to a lawyer to check this. So there's no online service. There was no online service for these people, and that was the problem we were targeting. And we thought legal tech should be the answer to this, because what are the main obstacles for these people? It is first to know that there is a remedy, or they have rights. Then to find the lawyer, if you're looking for a lawyer, to know is the lawyer any good, and to be able to pay for it. And our approach was to offer a service which is available from everywhere, from your smartphone, and for free. And that is hartz4widerspruch.de, which is the website which we launched 6 years ago already. And we have reached a size where around 150,000 people per month go to our website and get informed, which addresses the first instance of they need to know what rights they have. We issue around 1,000 to 2,000 objections or lawsuits per month, and we're hitting around the 100,000th lawsuit this year, I guess. And we are 120 people here working in Bremen on this project, meaning the portal and the law firm. So what we're doing is we make it very, very easy for these people to transfer their information, which is the main obstacle often. They receive all the paperwork. We make it all from the smartphone. You can open your camera, you take the picture and it's automatically sent to us. You can sign everything you need, the POA, the Vollmacht, on your smartphone, and then comes the internal aspect of the legal tech. We try to work very, very efficiently inside our law firm. So we use data recognition, OCR systems to extract all these numbers and all these data and to check whether there's something wrong or not. And then we talk quite often for a long time with these people, which is kind of your consultation process. You can't take away this even in the social law area, because you always have to look at the bigger picture of this person, not only looking at the notice from the job center itself. And then we decide whether to go against it or not. And in around 50% of the cases we do, and we win quite often, and it's all for free. So if you look at this situation where you might sit there as a single mom or dad on the countryside, not knowing how to access justice, not finding a lawyer, or you go on the website and do all this and maybe you have your remedy in within a day, it should be quite a difference. And the numbers speak, I think, for themselves, that this is an offer which is great for many people. Although, of course, looking at this very, very delicate situation of these people, like you were mentioning, and trying to channel this through a digital way is challenging, of course. No? The social element is very, very strongly needed, I guess, which we can only provide by the telephone. And of course, all these people need a smartphone with internet, which many have, not all, I guess, which is another obstacle. But therefore, we managed, I think this is the main takeaway, by using legal tech to provide a service which wasn't there before, because I guess there was not much money to earn for lawyers. It's not an area where you can get rich, and so there's no innovation driven. But you must work in a way where you can make money out of it, because otherwise you won't be there anymore. And this is by having efficient, high quality processes, which goes through legal tech, internal view of legal tech, and therefore you benefit from the market, or the market benefits from you with these services. And this is what we're doing every day, and the aspects of legal tech and how we look at it and how we benefit from it varies from time to time. But hopefully we're getting better every day. So this is short overview about what we're doing.
Thank you very much. It's impressive to see how big your company grew and how much there's a need for this assistance. I had actually no idea how big you are and how many people. The numbers are, they speak for themselves, obviously.
Yeah, I'm shocked too sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine. Kerstin, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, of course. Thanks. Yes, you already mentioned, Hannah, I'm working with the Paritätischer Gesamtverband. This is a welfare organization, and I'm working on the national level, meaning that I work more or less for the umbrella organization of more than 10,000 member organizations in all different kinds of social work. Today, I would like to focus a bit on our work in migration and asylum counseling. This is what many of our member organizations are offering. And I think there are a lot of points that Serena already mentioned that I can somehow underline or just add a bit of our experiences we made in the last couple of years. So first of all, already before Corona, we started a kind of a pilot project together with German Red Cross and other welfare organizations on kind of digital counseling. So we already for many years offer counseling services for migrants and asylum seekers. I already mentioned that. But a couple of years before, we added to the personal counseling a digital counseling in the sense that we offered, and I have to look that up, a messenger-based advice service. And this tool was only meant to supplement the personal counseling we do in presence, but this is meant to complement to this in addition. And the the persons who search for counseling, they can send us questions via this app. They can also send us documents. And for that reason, of course, it is very, very important that data protection is secured by this tool. We tried a bit, and this was already the first learning we made. The tool that you use in order to go digital is very, very important, because on the first hand, it has to be easily accessible. And at the beginning, a lot of migrants and asylum seekers wanted to contact us by WhatsApp, but this is something where we said, of course, no, there is no protection of data and of privacy, so we cannot use that. But on the other hand, we had to search a tool that is still very easy accessible, but data sensitive. But once we found that, the service was more and more used and asked for. But the second thing we learned was that for difficult questions, for difficult circumstances, and what Serena also already mentioned, in the area of asylum law, where it is very, very important to really see the full picture of the person, what grounds of persecution are there. It's really crucial to have a very profound interview or consultation in person, and that this instrument can only supplement on it. And it also became very clear quickly that also the persons who were asking questions, they asked us more the simple or easier questions via the app, and the more complicated issues, they still came to our counseling services, to our offices. And then third thing we learned mainly during the Corona pandemic was that, digital or online services are not accessible for everybody. So we had many, many issues because from one day to another, many authorities, from the BAMF, from the German Authority for Asylum Seekers, but also the migration authorities, they said, yeah, you can only reach us via email or written. And from that day on, our counselors faced a huge demand of persons asking them for support and for help. So this kind of digitalization of access to authorities, to laws, was too complicated. So there was a huge demand on support from our services. And then we, of course, as a social welfare organization, we have many, many clients who, yes, are illiterate, who do not have access to wireless LAN, to, even to hardware. So we faced a lot of difficulties on this issue. So therefore, somehow our resume was, it's very helpful as a tool that can supplement the services that we usually had or that already exist, but it can never exchange them or supplement them completely. Maybe for the moment so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I absolutely understand that. And maybe my first follow-up question for you three, Serena told me about a tool Asylex, a Swiss NGO, set up right after the Taliban took over power in Afghanistan, where it's a chat bot where the people can answer multiple choice questions, and then the chatbot gives them information on how they can get out of Afghanistan in a quick way. And I was wondering if such a chatbot with standardized multiple choice questions could be helpful before the actual asylum process or any other social welfare process starting, to give them information on what documents are needed, on if they can digitize the documents so that they don't get lost on for example, the fleet to Europe. If that would be helpful. I mean, it doesn't replace anything, but it makes the work for the lawyers and consultants, I think, in the end easier, but also gives the asylum seeker, for example, an overview on how their chances are to actually get asylum granted and what is needed so that the whole process gets expedited, for example. Is something like that, could you think of this in Europe, in Germany, in the social welfare process? Or do you think the process itself is too complicated to break it down on standardized questions? Maybe Serena, I'm sorry, you can start because you actually introduced me to the chatbot.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I guess I can start. Yeah, we were discussing the existence of this platform, which, as Hannah explained, is basically a platform in which people can see what, in Afghanistan though, can see what visa possibilities there are in terms of the existing visa possibilities, just moving through the platform. I think this is quite challenging, though, in relation to the to application of asylum law in the way that you've asked specifically, meaning that I think it's maybe even a theoretical issue in which I would make maybe a distinction between visa law and asylum law specifically, and then of course I will be happy to hear what Kerstin and Jan say about this. Basically, I feel that visa law is very much prospective, so looks at the future in terms of okay, of course, you're advising someone on their specific at that time on their specific case and what the potential possibilities are in the actual possibilities are of getting a visa, but then that's again something that analyzes the present and the future of their movement. Asylum law is very much retrospective, so of course it looks at the dangers that you would face if you went back to your country, and in that it does look at the future, but it also does so analyzing the reasons why you left, that they have somehow crystallized already in something that is analyzable then in the by the person, the caseworker, or whoever is interviewing the applicant and assessing their claim. I think even by definition, asylum law requires the person to be outside of the country, right? So I feel that it would be a bit non-viable, both in terms of the practical aspects of advising someone once they haven't left their country. And also potentially could even, from my perspective, could even be a bit dangerous. For again, maybe I can see various reasons in relation to this. A first element is the fact that the case is not a full case yet. We don't have, if you're advising someone while they're still in Afghanistan, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, wherever, they haven't actually left the country, so we don't have all the elements of the case to talk about and to kind of assess their case on. At the same time, I think maybe ethically it's even a bit complicated, because as a lawyer you would be advising, you'll be given information and advice on something that would potentially put people in a dangerous journey, that we don't understand, that we don't fully understand, of course, from Europe, that has a lot of elements of illegality throughout it, and therefore being in the position is obviously something that is not necessarily is not the position in which a lawyer would like to be, obviously, in which they would need to be put as well. And finally, the experience that we have had, at least in Greece in the past years, is that asylum law has changed literally every 6 months. So you would be advising for a law that doesn't necessarily apply to them in that specific moment because they haven't left the country yet. But also they might have completely changed by the time that they've reached the country. So I think that there's a lot of elements here that could be actually problematic. The situation and are actually basically due to the fact that asylum law by itself has a lot of inner contradictions that we cannot really solve at this level, unfortunately. But that, of course, the whole discussion would be different than though if the person had already left the country and was in Germany, in Greece, or whatever, and was already seeking asylum. There, I think there's potentialities and possibilities that we can explore more. But I'm really interested to hear what Kerstin and Jan think.
Yeah, Jan or Kerstin, who wants to start?
I can start, thanks. Well, first of all, yeah, I do completely agree. The main challenge we have from my point of view is that there are no legal ways for refugees or asylum seekers to access Europe or to access Germany, for example. So all the information you give is on somehow to tell people do an illegal or so-called illegal step. And it is very, very dangerous. I mean, we get thousands of, or we all received, I think, thousands of questions or requests out of Afghanistan. What can I do to reach Germany, to reach Europe? Can you get me out of here? And this is something, unfortunately, that we cannot really offer, because the law doesn't offer it, or only with very small programs like resettlement programs from UNHCR or humanitarian visa, but this is really for very, very few people. So I do agree completely to Serena, what she said. I think it's very, very difficult to really give good information on this point, apart from general information. But really to give advice already on this part of the reviewer of the journey, from my point of view, is very, very difficult and dangerous. So what we do is more give general information. Of course, German authorities also give general information, and we do give our point of view, which is from our point, like more neutral, or maybe more in the sense of the asylum seekers. We are not really neutral. We want to support, to assist asylum seekers really in getting their rights during the procedure. This is something we can offer. But and I don't really know the app you mentioned or the program, so I think it's a bit difficult for me now to judge just by hearing is it a good idea or not. I have to look a bit further.
Yeah, sure.
Well, if I may, I'm not competent enough in the area of asylum law to assess whether this is possible, but it convinces me what you're saying, that this should be quite a stretch to offer legal tech at this point of the journey. What I can add, maybe as an experience from our field, is when we started, as I was mentioning before, we were trying to put all our knowledge in the external aspect of legal tech, meaning we provided huge formulas where all the answers can be given to any problem in social law regarding Hartz IV, the social welfare benefits. And you can imagine this is a huge decision tree in behind, which we still use, of course, but we were thinking it's the best to provide this to the world. So we give an instrument to help themselves, but many few people were using it. Maybe they didn't find us, but the answer was it was maybe too complicated. We did not speak their language, or it was just not feasible to use it. I don't know. To really help them was to take away all the complexity and all the paperwork and all the questions, and just say, send it to us. Doesn't matter how you do it. We take it from there. Which it kind relates that it's very difficult to provide really feasible, really hard support in a purely digital way.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, that's what we all agree on, I think, from before, that the actual contact and the actual consultation in person can not be replaced by legal tech, but only be supported. Maybe that's where my next question then kind of goes. If you have seen any effect on the actual health of your clients because of the easier access to justice legal tech provides, or because legal tech makes the work more efficient and faster, if you have seen any changes in their mental health, for example, or physical health even. I think, Serena, you had make some experiences in Lesvos, right?
On the effect that our internal procedures changes have had on applicants, or generally?
Yeah, I think also because your processes get more efficient and faster because of that, and you can educate your clients better about their rights. So just the access to justice, if it had any changes and effects on them. Yeah.
I think for us, it still goes back to what I was saying to Jan before, meaning that it's still I think it's still very difficult to measure in terms of, I cannot think of a clear example of our clients being better because of the intake of information that we have or anything like that. The thing that I will stress is the thing that I've said before, which is that our lawyers generally are a bit better, which makes it already a huge achievement in relation to our clients, obviously. Yeah, so I don't know if maybe Jan, if you're providing directly or Kerstin, since you're providing directly the services, you had any better experiences, because obviously that's something that we are thinking about as well, as I was mentioning. And I think it's really interesting what you were mentioning before, Kerstin, even if it goes a bit off topic, maybe the fact that the people that are reaching out through the app that you have are still asking complicated questions to you directly in the bigger consultations, because that's the biggest fear I think that we have, that then people will see the app and will think that that's the information that we have provided is all, and then they don't need to see a lawyer anymore.
Well, I don't know if you want to go first.
Yes, please.
Kerstin, or if I should.
Fine.
Well, measuring the effects of legal tech is quite difficult, but we all hope that this will result in will have an impact on the people we're working for. Of course, we can measure this in the rate of success rate of our procedures, which is constantly rising, which should have an effect on our clients. Of course, I mean, if we win, the client wins, the client gets more money and receive multiple thank you notes and stuff, and it's so satisfying seeing somebody being better than before, of course, which drives us every day. But still, it's difficult to really measure. I think the most important part is that we are all still here, will be here in the future, and will be able to do our work, even in a way that the people who are doing the work are able to do it for a long time. Even you were saying, Serena, there are people who come in working for 4 weeks and leaving again. Not saying this is because they don't like the process. These are external impacts, of course, but I mean, an onboarding, as we say, onboarding in 4 weeks or maybe in a week to do the work right is huge. It's incredible, and therefore you have a good process, and therefore to be able to provide the quality needed for the process is, I think, it's great.
Yeah, I see.
And
Thank
will have
you.
an impact.
Yeah, I can imagine. Kerstin, do you wanna answer something?
Yeah, I can add something which might be a bit out of the topic, but no, the experience we made, because a lot of our members are centers for victims of torture and of trauma. And there are many refugees are counseled and are treated who have been victim of torture, who have been traumatized before their flight or during their flight. And the experiences we made there is, of course, that it is very crucial for the people to have access to right, to have a secure status, to have the possibility for family reunification. And in Germany, all those processes take a very long time. And the effect is that the people, even if they have access to psychotherapy and to all other kind of supports those centers can offer, as long as their status is not clear, as long as they are not really safe in the meaning that they can stay here in Germany, and as long as their family members are still in danger and cannot come to them here in Germany, this is really very bad for their mental health. So it is a crucial thing. But I think it's not very easy to say if we use legal tech, then as a result, the whole procedure will fasten, will be eased, and those problems will be resolved. There are unfortunately many more aspects in this whole process and procedure we have to speeden up, and then of course I think there would be a positive result on the health of those people.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear. That's what I was actually thinking about, that if we use legal tech to speed up the processes, that, for example, asylum seekers don't have to wait so long for a positive notice, even for family reunification. And then therefore the insecurity they spend so many months and years in some parts even in can be reduced and therefore have an impact. So that's very interesting to hear. That's kind of was my idea about legal tech in this field. I have one question in between from our listeners. The question is for Kerstin, actually. She is asking about the name of the, I'm sorry, okay. She's asking the name of the operation you were using and if it's available for nonprofit organization. The questioner is actually from a refugee law clinic, and they embrace the so-called WhatsApp problem, what you were talking about earlier, quite often. That's why she's wondering if the program is available.
Okay, so to be honest, this one app might not be accessible for everybody. This is called MBE On, and this is really an app that was developed for the, oh my God, Migrationsberatung für erwachsene Zuwanderer. So migration counseling of adults, so not specifically for asylum seekers. So this is a nationwide program for migrants in Germany. And welfare organizations offer this kind of service, and therefore there is a special app we invented. So I guess this is not really applicable for the refugee law clinics, but we could get in touch later and we can double check. But my colleague told me that Wire seems to be a messenger which is quite safe and which could be accessible and used in this context. But this is really also to be double checked. This is only what I heard as one idea that could be used instead of WhatsApp.
Amazing,
thank you. Better than WhatsApp.
Yeah, I hope that answers Anna's question. But also, if you want to connect, we have a session later on at 6 p.m. So maybe if you both have time, you could get together in a session room and then discuss this further. But now I would like to move on to another topic, which was kind of wondering me when I prepared this panel and when I researched the work of the European lawyers. So Serena, we all have seen the pictures from Lesvos, from the Greek islands. We all know about the lack of daily needs in the people's life, like clean water and food. I was wondering if it isn't a bit hasty to think that the digital infrastructure, then if everything else is missing, is sufficient to provide the work there. Is that a misunderstanding, or how are you securing that your digital infrastructure is working on the Greek islands?
Yes, so the answer is yes, I think, meaning that of course, with a longer explanation, I guess. So in camps, I would think it's fair to say that the digital infrastructure is almost non-existent. The majority of people that have internet, it's because they have internet on their phones. And of course, as both Jan and Kerstin were saying before, this is something that creates a big divide depending on the person. Also, frankly, also depending on the location of the camp, because there might be camps that are more remote and in which there's never signal, and camps in which signal is actually quite accessible. The way that we were doing it, and the reason why Brighter was really useful at the beginning, is that we were the one, of course, for the use of our tools, obviously, and again, this foresees the lawyer uses the tool still. We were simply having the great thing about Brighter was that it was available on phones as well, and with very limited connection, because it's just a link. It's not even an app that you need to use. The app is on a link that then lawyers can just complete on a phone. So when we were going to the camp in Moria, when there was in Moria, and we were still had access in Moria, the lawyers would bring their phones and they would do the registrations on from that phone directly. This has become for us generally a bit less relevant in terms of our connectivity, because since the COVID pandemic, access to camps has been generally very restricted. So since March 2020, the camps are effectively, many of the camps are effectively still under lockdown. And so lawyers cannot easily access the camps, and we don't have an office in the camps at the moment. So this is obviously for the internal procedure. If we think of expanding the system directly to asylum seekers, I think this is one of the biggest challenges, obviously, because the majority of asylum seekers still in Greece still live in camps. And as I was mentioning, that's not something that, of course, Wi-Fi is and digital infrastructure is not the priority at the moment.
Thank you. Maybe same question to Jan. What do you think is, like, how many people in Germany are you not reaching because they lack access to digitization, actually? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, it's difficult to measure. I think it's obviously far better than the situation of asylum law, of course. I mean, we're talking about residents in Germany, unemployed. I guess there's way above 90% having a smartphone there. So the access to a smartphone with internet, and again, all the services are coded mobile first, not heavily data usage and so on. I hope it's not that big of a barrier if you make the user journey very easy to use. I know, Kerstin, you were saying you had multiple issues just setting up the tech to access it. I hope, I'd like to say we can reach about 90%, but I would never say, and it's not the case that we substitute the lawyers or the Wohlfahrtsverband or any case. It's just an additional offer that we bring in on the table, of course. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Kerstin, how do you think, is there another barrier besides maybe missing access to digitization that makes people in Germany reluctant to use legal tech to make use of their rights? And then they instead, that they are a little careful and don't trust the digital process and therefore rather go to a consultation in person? Or do you think there are other barriers as well, which we maybe could use it's kind of ironic to use legal tech to build down barriers using legal tech, but do you think we could use digitization to break down other barriers?
Do you refer still to asylum seekers now, or generally speaking?
In general, not, I mean, people looking for social welfare help and also asylum seekers, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think for many people, it is the easier access, as Jan already mentioned. I know that there are many people who are quite reluctant to go to one of our offices in other areas of social work, for example, especially if people have financial problems and go to what we call Schuldnerberatung. For many people, it's very difficult to do the first step and really go there and admit, okay, here I am, I have financial problems and please help me or support me. And I think for those people, it might very well be a first step, an easier step somehow to contact such services via an app or online. I think this is something that, can also reduce barriers and reach other persons. I think this is the crucial point. You can reach, I think, different persons who can be reached easier online, but there is a small danger of excluding others who are not smart enough or who do not have the technique or whatever to use those services. And therefore, as Jan already mentioned, I think we always need both ways. And like this, I think there is a big chance to reach more people if we complement those two ways.
Yeah. Do we have to educate people more about their rights beforehand? Or do you think that people in Germany actually know about their rights? They're just hesitant to make use of them? Or do you think that we actually have a problem that people oftentimes simply don't know that they have rights?
I don't know if there are so many people thinking that they don't know if they have rights, generally speaking. But of course, many people do not know exactly which rights do I have and what can I do in order to succeed and have those rights recognized. And I think there is a lot that can be done to sensitize people, about their rights and about the accessibility to their rights. I mean, we have something in Germany, I don't know how many other countries have this, which is called Verbraucherzentrale. This is an organization which really has the focus on offer easy access to rights. But yeah, generally speaking, I think this is what we all try, like what Jan already explained, Serena or me, we all try to make access to rights easier with all what we do. And I think there is still a need and this can still be improved, definitely, without any doubt.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I concur.
Sorry, Jan, go ahead, please.
No, I concur.
Okay.
I agree. I mean, there are many steps to the access or to justice, and first knowing about their rights. I concur. Many people in Germany know about their rights. I mean, on all the cases we are working on, there is this information. You have a right to object to this. Very highlighted Britain, so everybody is shown this. But then begins the journey. Okay, I have a right, but what do I have to do? And in our cases, in the welfare benefits, they know they have a right, but they don't know that there's something wrong. If you receive like 20, 30, 50, 40 euros less than you're supposed to, you will never know. So there must be some input, whether to trigger that you check what rights you have, and then begins the journey to the access. So it's difficult, but improving, I guess.
That's actually great to hear. Maybe as one of the last questions, both for Serena and you, Jan. Right now, you are both the only organization of your type. Serena, as far as I know, there is no other NGO providing legal assistance to asylum seekers in Lesvos. And Jan, as far as I know, there is also no other platform like Hartz IV Widerspruch, also for other claims. Do you wish there would be more? Like, do you want more other people building up such platforms so that there is a broader market for it? Or are you happy being the only one right now because everyone comes up to you?
So it's actually for Lesvos, it's actually not accurate in relation to the fact that there's not enough organizations. There's the state at the first instance doesn't provide free legal assistance. It does at the second instance because it's theoretically is in European asylum law, so in Greek asylum law as well. There are other organizations that are providing legal aid on the island. The thing is that and also in the mainland, obviously. The thing is that it's never enough, meaning that the numbers that I've mentioned before of 65,000 people in Athens, for example, it's obvious that by all the organizations that there are and there can be, and in Athens there's many. We will never be able to cover all the needs of all these people because it's not the kind of assistance it's normally the kind of assistance in which you really have to go deep in a case, as my colleagues were also mentioning. You cannot just have a very brief meeting in which you assess the case of the applicant. The story needs to be heard in order to be able to give appropriate legal advice. So no, definitely there should be other organizations. We definitely wish that there would be more.
Yes, I agree. I agree for our area to this. I wish there would be much more of what we are doing. Unfortunately, as I was saying, well, and then you start thinking, why isn't there more? Why were we the first in this area? And maybe the answer is the innovation goes where the money goes. Well, I was mentioning this before. I mean, you see the speed in insure tech, in fintech, and now in legal tech in areas amongst great big class action suits and stuff, and nobody cares about the social law. So it is a pity, because those who most need the access to justice are left outside somehow. But I encourage everybody, not lawyers, but everybody working in this field. It is possible to do great quality. We didn't speak about the quality, which goes without saying that the quality must be great. Often we are confronted with, it's all automated, and where are the people? Of course, the people stands in the center of the process all the time, and the quality must be maintained. I'd say is even often higher, because at the end we have more experience from 100,000 cases than any other institute. But we see slow process in the asylum law or in the social law. But I don't want to maintain any monopoly or situation. There's so much to do, and there can be more and more players on the market, I hope.
Thank you very much. We actually have a question from our listeners, one of our listeners, that goes directly into what you just said, that the money goes where else. She is asking, how do you finance the application, and do you think this could be transferred to a similar application in asylum law? So basically, first of all, Jan, how do you finance Hartz-IV-Widerspruch? If you can answer that. So
yeah, I try. Of course, there's nothing. There's no secret behind it. I try to make it very, very easy, because of course there's always a lot of law stuff behind it. But saying it in a nutshell, we gain money, we get the money when we win the process. So like always, if you file for objection and the state in this case says, oh, you're right, sorry, it corrects its mistake and it pays the lawyer. So when we win, when our clients win, we get the money. If we don't win, we don't get any money. But we win more than we lose, because there are a lot of mistakes in these notices, and so this is the way the money comes. And I don't know if this is transferable to asylum law. I guess so. I'm not an expert in this, but once you apply the asylum law, there should be similar rules, that if maybe asylum seekers are rejected and you have a lawyer, and then the result is, sorry, you were right in the beginning and I'd like to pay a lawyer. But it's much more difficult than this, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. But Kerstin, do you have an answer to that? Do you know if the state has to pay either way?
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to pay either way, but the state has to pay if the asylum seeker has won the procedure, the court procedure, and gets a status at the end of the procedure. So this is right. This is similar than what Jan said. Well, difficult question. I mean, the idea of what Jan explained was more or less you check the Bescheid, so what is the decision?
Notice. Yeah, notice.
Yeah. The notice of the job center. And I think this is something, it is very difficult when it comes to asylum law, because I was already mentioning illiteracy, but of course we also have a question or a problem with the language, because usually all the people, they speak different languages. So this is already a question of accessibility. If you would like to do it with such a platform, which languages could you really offer? So I don't really have an answer to that. And besides what we offer, at least, and I don't know about Serena, she has to answer herself, but at least for our counseling services, we really focus on the asylum procedure. And when it comes to a court procedure, then we send the people actually to a lawyer. So we don't have our own lawyers who represent the asylum seekers in front of the court, but we only offer counseling during the asylum procedure. So this is completely different, a different story. And we could think about such a model, but I mean, at the end, lawyers themselves, they would have to decide if they really can accept such a model. And I know that asylum procedures, even in front of a court, they are very, very complicated. You cannot compare it to Hartz-IV, because you have to talk probably for hours with your client in order to find out everything. You really have to check all the information that is applicable on the country of origin, besides all the procedural law. So we have very, very complicated cases, very individual cases. And therefore, I'm not so sure if you can really use this model as a role model for asylum law.
Serena, do you want to add something?
I think I fully second what Kerstin has said. The thing that I was thinking was mostly in relation to the reception of a decision. Even if we went beyond the issue of the language, which is definitely something that to face directly people that don't speak many languages, it would different languages than ours, of course. It would mean creating really complicated legal tech tools, which are not necessarily something that we can do in-house, or it would take a lot of time. So it would be one of the challenges, I guess. But I was thinking in relation to the decision, the same thing that Kerstin was saying on the decision is based on facts much more than, which of course then, to which of course the law needs to be applied, but much more than numbers and potential miscalculations or mistakes, as much as I understood as what Jan was explaining. So I feel that in that regard, it might be a bit more challenging. But again, there could be other ways of accessing people directly that is not necessarily. I think it goes back to the thing that we were saying before, which relates to legal tech can facilitate maybe access to the lawyer, and then the lawyer support their work, maybe collect some initial information through a platform that is again facilitating the work of the lawyer at the beginning before the meeting, collecting information about the country of origin, the place of origin of the applicant, so that we can have some research done already since the beginning. But then that always with the idea that there will be a final meeting with the lawyer, in which it is the lawyer that will need to talk with the person explaining the story.
So basically, it's only the preparation for an actual consultation that can happen online, and then the rest is in person.
Yes, I guess something that we have thought about actually is a sort of a pre-collection of information, which of course would have many challenges. Some of them we mentioned already, but that's kind of the more feasible, at least, application that I can see at the moment. And aside from this, maybe it could also be possible to provide information as a very, very basic minimum to people. So, for example, in Greece, if you come from different countries, then a different asylum procedures applies to you. So I do see how it would be possible to explain some elements of the asylum procedure as very general information right away when someone arrives. Through an app they would be able to see right away, going beyond the problems of the digital divide and everything. However, it would still need to be just provision of information. We would need to be very careful on what kind of information we provide in order for it not to be dangerous. And it would need to be clear that it's not advice. It's kind of like a division, I guess, there.
That's what we talked about. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's what we talked about earlier, that it has to be clear to the people that this is not the actual advice and that it cannot replace seeing a lawyer in person, right?
Yeah. And I guess then it would be interesting to hear from people what they would need, because all of this, of course, a discussion that we're having, but of course they would need to be included in the conversation.
Yes, I mean, sure, yeah. Great. Thank you so much for this. I have one last question because we are reaching 4 p.m. and the talk is about to finish, unfortunately. From the listeners, we are a student-driven initiative, so the question fits perfectly into our group. If we want this topic to gain more attention in the legal field, should our legal education pay more attention to addressing social perspective regarding an access to justice in the first place? And if you think we should pay more attention, do you have any idea how we could implement it into the legal education? Maybe, Jan, you could start.
Well, it's an easy answer. Yes, of course. It's so important, and the legal education, those who have managed to do this know it's quite long and you learn a lot of stuff, like in every education. But legal tech or social perspectives of legal tech is something that is lacking. We are happy here in Bremen that we are part of a lecture called Legal Tech, where some of our lawyers go there sometime and talk about what is possible, what perspectives are there, and I hope this will result in more students getting out of their education and thinking about this, so this can be implemented in society and in the work. So hopefully, yes.
Yeah, I was thinking that because in my preparation for the panel, it came up to me that in my 5 years of legal education now, I'm in the last parts of it, hopefully. I never actually talked about either legal tech or social law, and never had it in my education, but only in my spare time, voluntarily, when I decided that I'm interested in it and then looked into it. So yeah, I kind of agree. I absolutely agree with you. Yeah. Serena and Kerstin, do you have any point on this too? It would be super interesting to hear the outside of the legal education point of view on this.
Shall I start? Yes, I think, of course, as Jan already said, it's very, very important from my point of view as well. When it comes to asylum law, at least in Germany, I think in other countries as well, we have this model of refugee law clinics. And this is something, from my point of view, very helpful, because apart from lectures on asylum law, you also visit NGOs and even offer yourself a kind of counseling to asylum services, or to asylum seekers, sorry. So that means you get both sides of the view, the theory and also the practice, and you get to know the person whom we talk about all the time. And this is crucial. So from my point of view, this is already a good example we have. And yeah, we could use this more, I think.
Thank you.
Yes, I don't have much more to add. I guess something that I'm now thinking in relation to students is the fact that, okay, I'm going to mispronounce this very badly, since clearly, as I cannot with German, clearly I cannot speak German. But part of the volunteers that come working with us, normally for three months, are referendare students. So that obviously do the referendare with us for 3 months, and that's part of, as far as I understand, their education to become lawyers and to register with the bar. That's beyond, I guess, the strict university education, but it's part of the legal education. So that's also something that, as it is a possibility, if it was used more, and I don't know how far and how exactly it is used in Germany, in other similar fields, and not only asylum law, but it's already a possibility that is there and could be implemented even more, I guess.
Great. I think that was a great last statement from all three of you, that us students have the opportunity to maybe change our education and change it for the better. Thank you so much for the time. I think if there are no more questions from our listeners, we can come to an end. I don't see any more questions. So yeah, thank you so much. It was inspiring. It was really interesting to finally talk about this topic and give it a little more attention, because I think we should definitely talk more about it. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleague Nina here in Münster, who will introduce you to our next panel.
Thanks, Hannah, and thanks all of you for introducing us to all those interesting projects and the social dimension of legal tech. Ich wechsle jetzt wieder ins Deutsche und um 16:30 Uhr wird es mit unserem nächsten Panel weitergehen zu Unmet Legal Needs Studien und der Justizforschung als Basis der Rechtspolitik. Bis gleich.